Am I the a-hole for ending my engagement because of my fiance's sister-in-law? My fiance and I, 25M and 24F at the time, met in college and were together for 4 years. My fiance, Joseph, has an older brother, Matthew, who is 3 years older than Joe, making him 28. I'm black, and Joe and Matthew are white, which I mention only because it's important contextually. I can't stand Matthew. In the few, half a dozen or so times I met him, he was extremely racist toward me. He would make racist jokes, only offering me fried chicken, watermelon, Kool-Aid, etc., while offering everyone else something normal like chips. He would laugh about arresting black people. He's an active duty cop, and generally be, at the very best, incredibly insensitive. I wanted to say something about it, but I only ever saw him on holidays and at his wedding, so it never felt like the right time. I also didn't want to be known as the angry black woman. My then fiance never once stood up for me when these things were said. He once made a racially insensitive joke, but apologized when I confronted him about it. In a way, this is where things started to go south. The main part of this story started last summer when Matthew married his wife Layla, who was originally from Lebanon. I only got to meet her a few times, but Layla was such a beautiful and kind person. I planned to get to know her more after the wedding, as we were supposed to be sisters-in-law, but I never got the chance. Matthew made racist jokes about her too, saying that she was a terrorist and that he was under the control of Al-Qaeda because he was with her. Matthew got Layla pregnant before their wedding and committed suicide about halfway through the pregnancy. My vitriol for Matthew ran so incredibly deep that, upon hearing about Layla's death, my immediate thought was that he killed her. He didn't kill her directly, but her notes cited him as the primary reason she took her own life. When he spoke to me about it, I got the feeling that Joe had very little sympathy for Layla. Whenever I mentioned how awful it must have been for her to make that final decision, Joe would respond with something like, "Yeah, it's just so hard for Maddie. He'll never be the same. Layla's dead, by the way. She'll never be the same again either." He also told me that Layla had been depressed for a long time and just reached the tipping point. In the same conversation, he told me that she blamed everything wrong in her life on Matthew, even though he did everything to make her happy. He did not. He joked about shooting her dog and called her a terrorist. She also looked miserable at her wedding, as if she was already regretting it. I still strongly believe that if she hadn't married him, she'd still be alive. Matthew is Joe's older brother, and Joe has always looked up to him, but I was incredibly put off by his words. I've struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts myself and have been hospitalized because of it. Joe knows this. I told him about it when we started seeing each other, and I was very open throughout our relationship about my struggles and ongoing efforts to pull myself out of my depression. He had other red flags, of course, but this was the breaking point for me. I ended up breaking up with Joe about 6 months after Layla passed. I wouldn't have waited, but I didn't want to compound his grief, and I didn't want to end our relationship over the phone. At the time, my friends were supportive of my decision, with many of them saying I should have left sooner. But now, when we talk about it, a few of them insinuate that I was in the wrong. Joe and I still communicate every once in a while, and while I have absolutely zero intention of being in a relationship with him again. So, am I the a-hole for ending my engagement because of my fiance's sister-in-law?